We are one with all life. All life is sacred. We are strong. We have the strength that comes from unity with all life. We are love. We know that there is no force in the universe as powerful as love. We know that all love is love. There are no limits. There are no rules. There is only love. From unity comes the strength that allows us to use the power of love to celebrate all life. We are the people. Join us in this celebration of love that makes life beautiful. Yate. The sacred journey starts here. Welcome to Navajo Pride.
Good evening, everyone. Shea ya already Nelson yan she tropan shlondo ki ani e bashichin tenjikine e dashachero touching e dashanella and le bish bitore e nasha. Good evening, the Net Pride Nation. My name is Already Nelson, and it's been an honor to serve the last 4 years as your executive director and the founder of the Net Pride, Navajo Nation Pride. And tonight's welcome address is coming to you live from Phoenix, Arizona. The amazing, fabulous, strong, resilient matriarch, honorable representative from the state of Arizona, Representative Blackwater, Jasmine Blackwater Nygren. Good evening, Jasmine.
Oh, Yatse. And good evening, everyone. Yatse, Navajo Nation Pride. So Yatse, Shea Jasmine Blackwater Nygren, Yanishia, Aro, Ashglishni Nishan, Ashinham Bashichin. No da adan atkachitni dashiche aro but atni dashanale aro she cheat as kanandant nasha aro beth ina ashinigi a boo van nigrin wolya akut ego the ne as zana nishle. So good evening, everyone, and welcome to Navajo Nation Pride. I am excited to be here before you. My name is Jasmine Blackwater Nygren, and as previously mentioned, I'm an Arizona State Representative representing Legislative District 7. LD7 is the largest legislative district in the country, and in LD7 includes the Navajo Nation and several other tribal communities, including the Hopi Nation, the Wallapai, Havasupai, Southern Paiute, Kaibab Paiute, Zuni Pueblo, San Carlos, and White Mountain Apache tribes. So I'm extremely humbled to be here before all of you this evening. I am coming to you directly from the Arizona House of Representatives. I'm here this evening, and we are actually currently in the legislative session still. We are only supposed to be in the legislative session for the first 100 days of the year, but here we are at the end of June, still trying to wrap things up. But with that being said, I am still humbled and excited to be before you all today. I'm here to introduce and welcome you all to this evening's events. This evening, we're going to talk about leadership and also marriage equality. And so I'm extremely humbled to be able to introduce these topics to you today. As an Arizona state legislator, I know that we're always fighting hard for LGBTQ rights here in the legislature. We face so many different issues. Being in a majority Republican state, we always are under immense pressure to pass anti-LGBTQ plus legislation, including many, many, many very bad bills that we've heard this year. As Democrats, we're always here to fight for you and fight for equality and all of those things. And I just wanted to add a special message to all of you who are listening, who are members of the LGBTQ community, that you are loved, that we care about you, that I'm here as your state legislator, giving you a voice, and that I care deeply about the issues that you face, and that you are heard, you are loved, and we care about you. So thank you so much again for allowing me to do this welcome address. I'm excited to listen in to the other parts of this evening. So ahiha and welcome.
All right. Wonderful. Jasmine, thank you so much for opening our evening up tonight. And so glad that you'll be able to tune in to the rest of our conversation. Looking forward to having you. Yat everyone, she'e josi raflito yanshe, belgana nashlento hatsoy bashichin, ado belgana e dashichedo, torikosha e dashanale. I'm from Rama, Navajo, New Mexico, and currently calling in from traditional Haudenosaunee land in Buffalo, New York, where my wife and I live. I identify as a queer Diné woman and have been a member of the board of directors with Diné Pride for the past 3 years. So we're really, really excited for everyone to be joining us this evening and throughout the whole virtual discussions that we've had leading up to this weekend's in-person events. So thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to be able to introduce you to our panel this evening, our panelists, and just encourage anyone who's listening in online. Feel free to drop some questions in the chat, on the Facebook chat page. Share some comments, share some love. This is just an open conversation, and we are so glad that everyone can be here with us this evening. So yes, today's conversation is, bringing in diverse perspectives on marriage and what it means to Diné relatives when we're talking about what marriage means to us and creating a life together. So we'll share how marriage equality will impact our lives and what we hope to see for the future generations of same-sex couples. We continue the fight for marriage equality in the Navajo Nation. And so these types of conversations that we're having this evening are important, especially as we continue to talk about our culture and our way of life. And so sharing those stories about marriage teachings and understandings goes hand in hand with that. So we all want to respect one another's perspectives this evening, and knowing that we all come from different communities, different families, different teachings, and just remind ourselves to share from the heart and be open and willing to learn from one another. So really glad to be here, and we'll go ahead and introduce you to our panelists. So first up, Elton. Hi, Yate, welcome.
Hi, Josie and Elray and our Pride Committee. Thank you. Yat e she'eya Elton Nazwe and she tohan instant tabahan bashishin na kaidane eda sheche tatnisani eda shanale the yadane. I am Elton Noswood. I am of the Near to the Water clan, born for the Edgewater clan. My maternal grandfather's clans of the Mexican people, and my paternal grandfather's clans of the Tango people. I am currently in Denver, Colorado right now, and happy to be a part of this conversation. Thank you.
Wonderful. Great. Glad to have you, Elton.
Is it my turn?
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Ramonda Holiday, and I am a trans woman of color. My clans are Hashkahazon Shlon, Lizatlan Bashes Chin, Hachini Edashache, Lizatlan Edashanele, and I am a R&B, Native American R&B artist, singer, songwriter, and I reside in Albuquerque right now. So
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Hi, Titus.
Hello, good evening. Do yate she ya Titus J Nazinishia. Ado Tobas na Ajin Schnedo Betani Bashis Chin. Ado Nanish Ezkachin that Shadows Kahanzo Dashinale. O Ray Tana Ocean Hodero Nasha. Ray Springstead, Church Rock, New Mexico. Right now I'm in Gallup we're having a little get together with my family, and I got away from our little meal, but I'm happy to be here. Here with my spouse of 9 years, and just want to say happy Pride to the Navajo Nation, to our families and friends, and I look forward to the discussion we're going to have. Thank you. Okay.
Go ahead, Titus. Hi, Precious.
Hi, Josie. Yate, she Precious Benali Inishia, it's Ani Nishli, Hachini Bashis Chin, Vilagana Dashache, Sinsigani Dashanella. Just want to say thank you for having me. I currently live in New Jersey, but my mom is from Sweetwater, Arizona. My dad is from the Clabato, and I grew up in Shiprock in Kirtland, New Mexico. I'm happy to be here. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yes, thank you. So glad to have everyone join us and us all to come together. A few of us know each other from different organizations, different student programs, and some of us are connecting for the first time. So this is beautiful. So we are here to kind of just learn from one another and share different thoughts and ideas that go along to support the larger conversations happening back home in Navajo. And so I guess to kind of get us started, I think a helpful question to jumpstart the conversation is just, from each of our perspectives, when we, say the word marriage, what comes to mind? What are some of those initial thoughts? And either maybe that's from a personal experience, or maybe that's from different teachings, but just want to kind of get a feel for what are some of the different perspectives in the virtual room. So
I think for me, marriage means so much more than what it portrays to be. My story is a little about me is that I was involved in addiction for like 15 years, and I was in active addiction, sex work, drugs, alcohol, and in 2017, I was sober. I decided to change my life, and now I've been sober for 5 years. And so I've always seen marriage because I've seen my parents, how they've been together for like 35 years and married for 30. So seeing that and as an example, didn't really understand it. But I truly believe that, seeing that example and seeing my grandparents and wanting that, although the addiction was such in the way and such, it clouded everything, I thought I'd never attain. But recently I got engaged, and I am soon to be married in July. And I truly believe that marriage is more than just two people coming together. Like for me, it was like building a legacy, having a partnership, having someone by you, having someone build with you, having someone to make decisions with you, helping someone to carry on into my older years, because I see a lot of like the Native women on the res, especially in my family, my aunt in particular, who never married, and she has, she's kind of struggling right now because she's up in age, and I kind of didn't want that to happen to me. In a way, I was like, oh God, I don't want to end up like that. Who is going to love me? but I found somebody, and I thank God for that. So I believe marriage is so much more than just what it seems to be.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And congratulations on your engagement and upcoming marriage. Very exciting.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else want to share your thoughts?
I can go ahead and share my thoughts. And I've been married now for over 8 years to my partner. And I knew the first day that I met my partner that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with him. Um, we had a lot of things, common interests, you could say. And one day I asked him, I said, are we going to be secure moving forward? Should anything happen to me? And it was around the time when the U.S. Supreme Court had recognized same-sex marriage across the United States, and we shared our support and our love with that, and we wanted to show to the world that we shouldn't be hiding behind closed doors and live a life behind that closed door. So we we um, we actually, the story actually for me on that was we actually went out to I used to be a school board member for McKinley County Schools, and we had a conference up in Santa Fe, and we had some time around Valentine's Day, and we hurried and rushed up with my mom to the courthouse in Santa Fe, and the judge there was very nice to us, and she says this is the first time that I'm going to be marrying a Navajo couple, two guys, and we didn't have another witness, so one of the court clerk came in and she was the second witness with my mom, and we got married that before 5 o'clock, before the courthouse closed in Santa Fe, and we celebrated with some buffet at Buffalo Thunder,
Nice.
and since then we've been a happy couple. We've enjoyed each other's company every day, and I've really enjoyed my life since I've married my partner. And I believe that's what marriage is the bonding of two people to come together and just to live life. And unfortunately, when I came back to the Navajo Nation to work, one of the things that kind of shut us down was the recognition of well, actually not recognizing same-sex marriage. So when my insurance benefits were coming up, it was unfortunate I couldn't add my spouse to my insurance because of the Marriage Act. So that kind of was on the downside with me coming back to work with the tribe. So we kind of make it work around that, but we live our life to the fullest, me and my partner. And this coming Valentine's Day in 2023 will be our 9-year anniversary. So looking forward to that, and that's how I see marriage. So with me, so thank you for that. That's what I shared.
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing that story. That's beautiful. And the federal legislation, I think that changed the lives of so many people. And being able to make those, the real life decisions of like how does marriage impact our lives, even when it comes down to health insurance, to benefits. And so I'm sure we'll get into that a bit more in our conversation, but I really appreciate you starting it there. Yeah. All right. Anyone else want to jump in?
Sure, I'll go ahead and jump in, Josie. For marriage, the term marriage for me is, a term of balance, as mentioned. Someone, it's that essence of creating a balance, within a household or, within one's lives. I'm going to be coming from a different perspective on this conversation, more so as a single gay male, in a way that my experience really helped me begin to think about what marriage meant to me, particularly during the pandemic. Being alone, being in isolation, having health issues, it got me really thinking, like, who's going to take care of me? I don't have someone significant here with me, and as I get older, how is that going to, affect my life? So this concept and understanding of marriage really began, to make me think about that. And, hopefully, I'll find someone to compliment me in that way. But it also made me think about what it means to be a Navajo person intending to want to get married. How do I go back to my family, and say, this is who this is what I want to do. This is whom I want to bring into the family. And, I support marriage equality, but I think marriage in a concept of a colonized way of thinking doesn't sit well with me as a Navajo person. Only because I know growing up traditionally and have attended Navajo marriage ceremonies, it was taught to me that was for procreation, the basket, all of that was, so for me, that kind of left me out like, oh, well, then I can't participate in that. But it made me further question, why is that? What is that traditional understanding? And so I'm going through that right now. I'm really asking those questions. And so, and I'm going to share a little bit of a story that I found out about, about what that meant to be with someone in our traditional tribal communities. And I think that's important for a lot of us to understand, particularly when we're wanting to introduce legislations, again, that mind of balance, we need to honor our traditions, but still yet, progress of who we want to be and gain those rights of equity and equality. So, I just want to share that in that way. And I want to say to my relatives who are speaking, congratulations, your stories are so beautiful, and I think, with the support that you have from your families and communities, and it takes a lot to disclose that publicly too. So I just want to say thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for saying that. Elton, what you said about balance really rings true, at least the way I view my marriage. And I've got married 2 years ago, the 2020 in September. Our original plan was to have a good 150 people, folks from back home coming out east to meet my wife's family, and that never happened because of the pandemic. So we had also pushed back our wedding years and years. So by this point, we were engaged maybe 5 years, and we just decided there's nothing with the pandemic happening, with folks passing in my family and her family, and just the uneasiness of the world. We wanted to have this protection, this legal protection. So we had a small 8-person wedding underneath the Manhattan Bridge in Brooklyn. It was beautiful. If you would have asked me a few months after how I felt about it, I would cry. I didn't have my mom there. I didn't have my dad there or my sisters. Luckily, my brother lives in Queens, so he was there. But now I look back at it and I think it was the best thing that could have happened, because it was all about us. We got to really focus on us. And I feel like that's what a marriage is, first and foremost, about you and your partner and the bond that you create with them. I feel so secure with her. When Elton talked about balance, she is my perfect complement. I am loud and brash, just Batani lady. Just bossy. Josie knows. She's known me for quite a long time. But my wife is just so kind. She is caring. She listens really well. And that's the kind of thing, when you get to the essence, my idea of what a marriage is somebody that complements you, that you can spend the rest of your life with, never get bored, sharing all of these different adventures. And I'm just really looking forward to what life brings us, what different adventures we'll have together. And I think we would still have this life even if we didn't get married. But knowing that we are legally protected in this country, at least for now, feels really good, feels really secure. We can focus on something else, focus on other things other than will people see us, will people respect us. well, can I put her under my insurance? Those are really important things, but it's nice to not have to think about that. You just can live life. So, yeah.
Mhm. Absolutely. And yeah, I'm sure that, you, Precious, are not alone with any other couples from across the country and world who were in kind of this, standstill during the pandemic of like, how do we move forward with this? And how do we try to, get our family members involved or loved ones who can't travel for a marriage ceremony? I mean, that was very much, reoccurring stories that were shared by friends and loved ones. And but glad that you did have your brother nearby and had that support, and I'm sure so much love online. And so thank you for sharing that. And I also just want to acknowledge that this is such a great conversation to start. I know we're just getting into it, but really appreciate that the openness and just the honesty that you're all sharing. We have some viewers from across the country tuned in at this time. I know we have folks from Harvard and Texas SU, NMSU, of course UNM. There's Pride Weeks happening across these different campuses, ACLU of Utah as well. So, it's great to have folks being interested in our work and in the conversations that are surrounding our lives as Diné people, and those who are really wanting to talk about marriage equality and how that impacts our nation. So this is wonderful. And I know we did talk about kind of what marriage means to us, and I think there are a lot of great themes that were shared across everyone, and that balance and love was coming to the top as well. And I can imagine that we have some young viewers who are like, wow, that sounds so magical. And, but what is love? Like, how are we finding a healthy way of loving one another and, finding the safe love that is there. So just want to ask folks maybe to chime in and just share your understanding of love. And maybe that's from different teachings. Maybe it's from your family, but just want to make sure we get a chance to hear that too.
I can go first. And kind of just explain how I see that over the years as me as a couple. We always say I love you, but really the meaning of that is being compassionate, just basically reaching out all the time, and every little thing you do, every little home project you do, or whether you go out and have a little meal, I always tell my spouse that you don't need to prove all the money you have, or all those kind of things. What makes me solidify our love is just doing the little things with each other, supporting each other with everything we have. My spouse has been very supportive of me over the years, as being a school board member, working in difficult jobs, and just basically being there every part of the way. I'm also a traditional practitioner, so in Navajo culture we call them dimhaskatis. And through the years, performing ceremonies, my spouse has always been there with me. And we kind of grew up in a society where we were told that it was an acceptable principle being gay. But as we progress the years, my family has been very open and supportive, and by showing that love with my spouse, our family sees that, and we're a prime example of how we should be a couple, and show that role model to my younger generations. And I tell them, it's basically how you feel of one another, and that love is what it is. Just a support, just being there for one another all the time for the little things. And I always tell my spouse that it's always going to be there all the time. We're always going to be doing things together as a couple, and I think that's love, just from my seeing. And it doesn't have to always involve money financially or anything. It's just being there for one another, and that's how I see it. And I just wanted to say that. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Other thoughts to share?
I really like what you had said, Titus, about it's the little things, right? I'm a big believer in love languages, right? I really just like to hear those little words of like affirmation, the thank yous for just doing the little things and doing them together. I think that's like the most exciting thing. Where you were talking about doing stuff around the house and projects, like that's my favorite thing to do. I saw my parents do this growing up. They were a good partnership, definitely from the older generation. Had that like not hierarchy, gender roles. But it's something also that my wife and I knew that we didn't want to play into those or incorporate those. It's like the question you would pose was the love that we see from our people and from our family. There's so many things that I can take from my parents and learn from them because they taught us how to love for them. Happiness for us was key. So we were very privileged to come from very accepting and a loving family. My parents accepted me, I also have a gay brother. I accepted him and both of our partners, and that's lovely. Also, there's so many things about their relationship that I've learned not to do. And I feel like that's also really big teaching moments about love. So I just take all of those and I try to embody the best person I can be for my partner. One of the biggest learning things that we've come across in our nearly 10 years together is just having the ability to communicate. We struggled a lot. I can bulldoze through conversations, and get really defensive. And luckily, my wife is a therapist, and she was very patient with me. She talked through things with me, and I think that's one thing I'm most proud of in our relationship is just the amount of growth and amount of love we were able to take through all those struggles. And now, like, I hear my sister-in-law talk to my wife about how do you and Precious communicate so well? Like, do you guys do that on purpose? Are you guys just that lovely to each other on purpose? Like, does that take a lot of effort? So it's really nice to hear, but I think love is all about patience and working together through the hard times too.
Yes, that's wonderful. Thank you both for sharing. And I'm thinking, there are probably little, nieces, nephews, and young ones tuning in that, need to hear some of these different perspectives. And, I don't know, at least this is just a personal thought, but a lot of the same-sex or LGBTQ couples that can get portrayed in different films, movies, shows, there's, typically a lot of angst or a lot of drama that goes with that. And that is, based on lived experience. But at the end, like, how do you find that other person who is that right fit, that right balance, and that healthy relationship? So it's good to hear all of this. Elton or Ramonda, you want to chime in?
Yeah, sure. And thank you for sharing, Titus and Precious, from your experience, from your longevity of experience. I mean, 9-10 years. I'm like, for me, in gay years, that's like 50 years. Hey, so congratulations. No, just kidding. But it's good that you are expressing, how you all make it work, which is beautiful. And that acceptance, I think, is really important, or is something that's going to be important to me, is that family acceptance, right? Because that's really important for our communities as well. And it oftentimes frustrates me as well, in our general LGBT Navajo community, that sometimes we don't ask each other about our clans, even if they're, if we're dating someone. I see friends like, oh, I'm hooking up with so-and-so. And it's like, are you asking their clans, And I think we're moving away from that a little bit. And I think it's important that we need to be able to do that again, because that's, that's what you do with, with our cisgender relatives, right? So we got to continue to practice that on our own. Something that I mentioned as well, that I'll share, is that when I was thinking about, marriage for me per se, and I was talking to my relatives as well, and my sister, and I told them, I was like, you guys, you all well know and acknowledge when I bring someone home and they're meaningful to me. Because when we're in ceremony, they'll sit on the left side of me. And when that happens, you will know this is the person for me. I won't have a Bible ceremony, but this will be my acknowledgement to you, because that's the way I was taught in ceremony. And so they understood that and they agreed. And beyond that, I was thinking more culturally, and have talked to some relatives as well, but there was a type of, not necessarily ceremony, but an acknowledgement of us as Nagle Delbot people. And I was told there was a basket. At one time, there was a specific basket for Nagle, that it was similar to the wedding basket we have, but the colors were a little different. Now, the story was shared to me in a way to help me understand that balance, that understanding of being a couple. But a lot of that was lost during the long walk, that understanding, because those people who had the knowledge of that basket, of that acknowledgement, did not come back per se, unfortunately. And it just made me curious. And so now that conversation gives me an opportunity to talk to my elders a little bit more, to understand, to know if that existed. Interestingly enough, I was talking to an Apache friend of mine about this once I was told this. I was like, I heard there was this, certain basket, and my Apache friend affirmed it within their own tribe and said, we had that similar understanding. We had our own different baskets and understanding for us separately. And it just amazed me to hear that, because when we talk about these and we talk about our cultural ways, if someone understands the way you're talking and affirms it, to me, it's truth, right? And so it just really makes me kind of want to understand that a little bit more. And also talking to, the relative who shared this story with me, they also said that there was this acknowledgement also included people knowing that you were together communally. There was that communal acknowledgement, and people would accept that. So that just kind of made me think a little bit more about how I will navigate my cultural understandings with this, Western way we think of marriage, right? And this policy. And I think this is an opportunity for us to, as well as to talk to our tribal leaders and to question them about these stories about us, Have you heard about this? Was there this? Was there that? And I think that would influence, at least politically and hopefully socially, their understanding for us, and continue to support for, the legislation and the policies that we need for our communities. So just wanted to share that a little with everyone.
That's so helpful, Elton. I'm sure that, if anyone has any follow-up questions, I know I do. But I mean, they say there's no silly question, but I feel like it's going to be a silly one. Can you tell me a bit more, like, why is it the left side? I haven't heard that just yet, so I just want to.
Well, the left side meaning, when you're in a ceremony, if you're the patient, you're usually to the left and the medicine person's to the right, and then your support. So when I would have ceremony, my mother would sit to the left of me to support me. Gotcha. But if I had a spouse, they would sit to the left to support me. Okay. So that's just kind of how I was taught on how that works within a ceremonial context.
Mm-hmm. That's wonderful. Thank you. And sharing about the basket too. It's interesting, just talking to other Two-Spirit or Native LGBTQ community members across the country. They always feel like we as Diné people are very lucky, and that we still have some of these stories. We still have the words to describe these different genders, and absolutely, but, you know, taking it a step deeper and knowing that, yes, there is still much that was lost for our relatives, and those teachings specifically, and you sharing about some of the stories that you've heard on the specific baskets is an example of that. So, you know, the impact of colonization is just, you know, felt all throughout our everyday lives, and appreciate you kind of shedding some light on that specific to marriage here. But sorry, rambled a little bit. And Ramonda, do you want to chime in, or are there any other follow-up questions or people want to chat about what was shared?
I can chime in. The question, understanding of love from the teachings of my upbringing is different, and not to disrespect. I totally respect my upbringing. I totally respect my my lineage as a Navajo trans woman, the tradition, because I believe that's where we came from. It started from there. But for me, growing up in a Christian home with my parents being pastors, it was such a challenge, because I'm not only dealing with who I am, I'm also dealing with, you know, what people say in the church, that, you know, all of this is right and wrong. But I found my path, my way, my courage to live, and my courage to be who I am, the strength to become who I'm supposed to be, outweighed all the negativities, all the pain, and all the discouragement and the put downs of who I was supposed to be in life. Because I truly believe God don't make mistakes, and we're not mistakes at all. And I always thought to myself, when I was in those years of recovery, I always thought, why give me so much love? Why give me this heart that is so full of love, that I dream to be with someone? I have this heart to carry and to love and to make a home and to care for my significant other. Why give this all to me and not be able to act on it, is what I always thought. And as I sought after my higher power, as I sought after him, and I realized that I wasn't ready for what was going to be in my life, which is me meeting my soulmate. I had to first love myself in order for me to love somebody else. I had to care for myself. There was about a two year and a half span that I was celibate. After my recovery in 2017, I was celibate from everything, and not realizing in those times that I was healing, that my body was healing from all the sex work and all the things that come with it to survive out on the street when you're full of addiction. And it was like my body was healing, and my soul and my spirit and my mind. And so when it came to me coming full circle and finally loving myself and caring for myself, then I started to see that, okay, you know, if I'm going to be alone for the rest of my life, then so be it. But if there is someone for me, then, you know, bring that person into my life, if that's what you want. I was speaking to my higher power. And so a little story about us is that I met him in 2010. And we stayed in contact through the years. I met my ex that I went with. I went through 7 years of just turmoil, abuse. I went through so much verbal abuse, physical abuse with my ex of 7 years. And that taught me so much. And so when that ended, he reached back to me. My fiance now reached out back to me, was saying, like, you know, how are you doing? It's been a long time. He had his own life, and I had my own life, not realizing what I had to go through or what I was going through. He didn't know all that. But when we reconnected, that love was still there from, I want to say 12 years ago now. It was still there. So I was like, oh my goodness, I am going to explore this, and I am going to, you know, see what this is about. And as we started communicating again, now that I'm whole, now that I'm fully healed, I saw that love was so effortless, that when it is the right person, there is no struggle. when it is the right person, there is so much communication, there's so much patience, there's so much kindness, there's so much, just love. It's not even hard. I hear a lot of my relatives, a lot of my cousins, my girl cousins say, oh, I'm arguing with him tonight. Oh, he just, and I went through all that. And I'm now, this is my story, I can only speak for myself, is that, I don't think that's the right person for you, because real love, true love is effortless. Like there's just that balance and that, understanding. And it's just an amazing feeling. So growing up like that, and with my upbringing and putting that together with who I am now, although they say that it was wrong, to me, I'm like, no. How can God give us all this love? How can God give me all this love and not share it with my significant other, with my children? How can, that's not right. So that's a little of my understanding of my upbringing and my teachings and my in my story in my life. So yeah.
Yes, thank you so much for being so open and sharing your story. And I'm so glad that you found that true love. Yeah, it is. I mean, again, like it's everybody's own experience, but as you were kind of describing that, I'm like, wow, yeah, it's very lucky when we're able to find that. And when we do, I'm sure my wife is tuning in too. So I'm like, oh, my love. So this is really great. Well, I mean, I would, we were able to connect before we went live, and we now know that the Marriage Act is going to be set to be reviewed sooner than we thought, actually, and hoping that there's been a lot of momentum over the past few years to really move the needle on this one. And so I think, what would be helpful for folks to kind of share is just, what would marriage equality in the Navajo Nation mean to you? Sure, we all may be, in outside of, the Four Sacred Mountains, but, that is our heart, that is our home. So just want to get a sense for what that would mean to you, and how would that impact your life, or how are you thinking of, future generations, if that were to go in the right direction?
I would like to share just my thought on that, on marriage equality in the Navajo Nation. I think it would mean a lot to our brothers and sisters across the vast Navajo Nation. And I like the story shared earlier about how our cultural beliefs plays a big part in our society. And I've heard many stories over the years about how we had come from here, from the past to now, on how society is changing. So it would be a big momentum across Navajo to say that marriage equality is now for everybody, not just a few. Um, my late elders used to say that a lot of these teachings of um, marriage equality and female having a woman president all came from teachings that were not traditional belief. But to show that if there is marriage equality in Navajo Nation tomorrow, it shows that there's hope, because our younger generations, we don't know how the society will be for them. Every day it changes. And over the years, we've had our brothers and sisters that were unable to share the same momentum we had back in 2013 when the U.S. Supreme Court gave the right for us to marry our spouse or our wives or husbands. And now that we had the opportunity to do that in all 50 states, it's time to show that within our own sovereignty as a Navajo Nation, to tell the world that, hey, here in Navajo Nation, marriage equality is open, and it's there for us to show the world that we're part of that mainstream moving forward. And not only with that, it'll be a big blessing to a lot of the people that maybe are waiting to share their stories and their hopes when they do get a chance to marry who they want to on the Navajo Nation. So I'm very, very excited for it. I really do hope that the Navajo leaders today do, get this legislation passed. It's coming up. And I do hope that our people can see that we as LGBT community and the Two Spirit community here, that we're all the same. That there's really no difference in us. It's just that we just so happen to love the person that may be the same sex as us. But I really do hope that this legislation does pass, and I do pray that our leaders make the right choices for our younger generations to come. We're not doing the work for our current day people, we're doing it for our future generations to come. So I do hope that I'm excited for this new legislation coming up, and I do hope it does become reality. So I just want to share that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Titus. And as you were sharing your thoughts there, is also, the Navajo Nation, a lot of other tribal nations look to the work that we do and the directions that we move in different areas of community development, culture and language revitalization, all the reclamation efforts that are happening. And knowing that there are, I believe, only 37 tribal nations that recognize same-sex marriage. And if we were able to join that small group, I mean, I'm sure it could really have a much bigger impact to show that larger support.
If I want to add on really quick,
Yeah.
one of the things that I see as an obstacle is religion. And that's playing a big factor today. Immediately, when you talk about marriage equality, it's always about religion. But we shouldn't use our personal religion on other people, on how they want to live in society. I have a lot of respect for my family. I have a lot of family members that do attend church, that do attend Native American church. I have a lot of respect for them. Nothing to say negative about them. But I think when it comes time for for this referendum or this legislation to come up, then other people should have a referendum on it. Or if not, then it should be, respect one another. And that's how my elders taught me growing up is be respectful, show respect to one another. And that's the only way you can live in society. My late elder used to tell me, how she so that's kind of the thing, is just saying wherever you go in society today and anywhere, always show kinship, no matter what. That's gonna be life. And that's how I see it. And I really do hope that this happens. And I do see that there will be oppositions, and I just do hope that people don't use religion on that to say that it's not good for the people. It should be a done deal for us. So moving forward, that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thank you so much for those follow-up comments.
I can go. Kind of like a follow-up on what he said about the whole religion thing. I agree that a lot of because coming from a religious background, I agree that they inflict that a lot. And to me, it's so demeaning. It's so it brings you down as a human being. And I think the only way that we can show the people, our elders, I want to say old school, the old school people, the only way we can show them is by action. I know that with my parents, my journey with my transition started in 2005, and it took, I don't know how many years to now for them to gradually come into accepting my life and accepting it. But they had to see my come up, because I'm gonna say something that my mom said to me that was so ignorant at the time. She said when I was transitioning, she told me that no one's going to hire you, no one's going to take you serious because of who you're trying to be, and that always stuck with me. And now I'm flourishing in 2 jobs, 5+ years, and so now she sees that what she said and how they thought they saw who I was is not lining up to their beliefs. So by showing action and by showing integrity, especially when it comes to marriage, if we show the people and our generations ahead of us and our younger generations, if we show them that marriage is sacred, that marriage is about integrity, marriage is about faithfulness, marriage is about being loyal, and we show the people, even on the reservation, Because my mom always said, everyone's watching you, everyone's paying attention to you. And that's why you don't see me in and out of hotel rooms. You don't see me out there on Central anymore. You don't see me acting unruly out here on the streets and being unfaithful, because I truly believe that if we're going to make a change, it's by our example, it's by our actions, it's by our living day to day. People are going to be like, 20 years from now, oh wow, she's a trans woman of color but married to her husband, some amount of years. So I truly believe that it's by action that we have to show these elders and these people who are so against marriage equality, especially in the LGBT community. We got to show them by action, because we can tell them all we want and say all we can, but they're not going to listen. But if we show them by my example, by my story, showing my parents throughout all these years, showing them that this is who I am. This is I'm going to flourish. I'm going to succeed. I am going to overcome. I am going to, I'm not going to be degraded and demeaned and under your negativity because of what you think about me. So I truly believe that's what we got to do. So.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, this is a huge action, just us having this conversation and people tuning in and listening. So yeah, I absolutely appreciate that. Precious, did you want to jump in?
So I just bought a house here in New Jersey like 2 years ago, and knowing that, me and my wife understood that we're probably going to raise our kids away from the Navajo Nation, away from home. It's going to take a lot of work to teach them, tell them what it is to be Diné. And I want them to look back at home on the res, and have this love for the place, right? This place that is full of beauty, full of family, full of love. And I'm afraid that if this doesn't pass, they're going to look at it and say, that's a place that doesn't recognize my moms. It's a place that doesn't like my family. And I feel that. I feel a lot of that. I have lived off the res on the East Coast since I started college. I love the place. I love home. I carry it in my heart always. But there's always that little stain. This is a place that doesn't accept me for me. I accept all of it, the good, the bad, the ugly, right? But it doesn't want me. It doesn't see me. It doesn't see the family that I'm bringing into this world. I'm bringing that good, right? Like trying to balance it and trying to bring this hojon to life. And that I feel like I do that really well with the life and the love that I have with my wife. But the Navajo Nation can't see that. They won't see that. And I think it stems a lot from just colonization. The nation, Navajo Nation really prides itself on being a leader, right? Leader in the language, leader in cultural preservation. But when you have something like this on the books that basically strips away a vital right to a lot of its citizens, and that's based, especially at the core of it, it's based in colonization. It's based in the folks that took over, that put us on the res. And I feel like for the Navajo Nation to really achieve their goal of sovereignty, of longevity, of just being uniquely Navajo, uniquely Diné, I feel like they need to go back to their cultural teachings and see that this is how that used to be before colonization, before Christianity. It says we recognize all these different people. We recognize all these different types of unions. And it also just will show Navajo people, Diné, that they all matter, not just a man and a woman together, but everybody else. And I want to be recognized by my people, by my nation. Even though I'm all the way out here in New Jersey, it still hurts my heart a little bit. But I'm hoping it gets overturned for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Precious. I'm just going to close with some little thoughts that I have, but Precious, you bring up a good point in terms of family. I think once this legislation, and I'm hoping that it will pass, but how do we begin to define what family is? I think there are going to be some questions that our own communities and families are going to have once this is passed that I think we need to prepare ourselves for, in terms of child welfare. How is that going to look for our LGBT communities? Divorce, we know that's going to happen. How is that going to influence the perception of marriage equality? I know with our non-Navajo, non-Native communities, that's something that is beginning to be this tenuous question, in terms of divorce among same-sex marriages. DV, domestic violence, family structures, all of these things I think we need to prepare as a community once this act passes so we can begin to implement some policy and education. Because I think this is going to be a movement for us. I think this is going to be a precedent that's going to set a movement for all of us as Navajo LGBT community members, relatives, that we need to begin to prepare for, and think a little bit further, because these will impact, again, future generations. We're going to try to decolonize this perception of marriage, but we also need to be able to answer some of these questions. How we're going to begin to deal with marriage, or how are we going to deal with divorce, you can't just be giving hickeys to everyone, those times, hey, just kidding. But, those things I think are critical once this day, are critical, once this act passes, that we need to be prepared for, and begin to community, build community, mobilize our community. I'm just so impressed to hear about the relationships you all have, and to know that there are more of us who have these relationships or these ideals as well on who we want to be. So I just want to put that out there, and hopefully this conversation will help motivate us. And that's how I actually got involved with this conversation, because I was like, okay, we need to do more, we need to do a little bit more. So I was invited to come and speak about this, but I learned a lot in this short time that we had together. So thank you for sharing your experiences, and thank you for having some good in-laws out there. I tease Josie about her partner, but thank you all again. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Elton, and I love your comments about like what happens next. Should the law go in the right direction, which we are all hoping for. But I think the really important next step is to make sure that we, as members of the community, are ready to respond and to get involved, and to set the table instead of being brought to the table. We need to be, making sure that we're a part of the conversations, that we're leading the conversations, and that there's lived experience in the room when those policies are developed. So you will not get rid of us. Diné Pride will be staying connected, absolutely. And I just, from the bottom of my heart, thank you all so much for joining this evening. I know that we could probably chat for a few more hours and all the viewers would stay on, but we are going to have to be wrapping up and getting ready for our next conversation. But before we do that, I just want to offer you some time to share some closing remarks. And we always think about our young ones out there and folks who are tuning in, and if you want to share something with that young Native LGBTQ person who's watching now, is there any advice or thoughts that you would want to share with them, just given our conversation today?
I'll go first. I would say you are lucky. You are part of one of the best communities out there. I remember sitting down with some friends, bunch of gay natives, and we were just talking about how this is such a good community. Everybody is so open, full of love, kind of go through the same stuff where people kind of look at you weird or have some family stuff sometimes. But all in all, it's a good community because people are there to love. We all know, like, we have a bigger kind of love, multidimensional kind of love, and it is a beautiful community. So always understand that there's going to be people looking for you, loving on you, and never be ashamed to be part of this community. It's lovely. And I'm always here. Also, quick thing, you can find the love of your life on some dating apps. I found my wife on OkCupid. So keep that in mind when everybody around you is your cousin or has your clan. Go to those dating apps. All right. Yeah, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
I can finish mine's off. I just wanted to thank everyone here. Good conversation. Indeed, we could go on and on talking, but I just want to just say thank you again, and to those young folks out there. Life is starting, and if it's one thing that I learned today, is that be proud of who you are, and don't be scared, to come out of that closet. And I grew up pretty much not knowing that I would eventually one day find my partner, my spouse, the love of my life would be the same sex as I am. But I grew up, wanting to see how life would be for me, and this is where I'm at today. I'm a happy person. I have a really good relationship with my spouse. But I'm just saying, if you ever have someone to speak to, there's family there that will support you. And there's the number one supporter in my life was my mom, and my mom is still my number one supporter. When I came out to her, she was always supportive of me, and so I'm thankful for that. And I just wanted to really quickly share and introduce my spouse. He's finally done eating, so I wanted to hurry and introduce him really quick. And that's my spouse right there. His name is Daryl Simbigay. Hello. And he's of the Bitahni clan. So all you Bitahnis out there, you guys very care much for your significant other. So I just want to introduce him and thank you for everything he does for me in this world. He's my number one supporter in everything. That's all I just say that. So thank you. Thank you very much. That's all I just say. Share. Thank you.
I also want to go and tell the young LGBTQ plus kids, just everyone in general, that it's going to be hard. School is hard, not only learning, but also trying to find your position and trying to find your way in life. But I just want you to know that you can see all of us here. You can see all of us on this panel, that we have gone through so much pain and so much hurt. I know I have, and I am still here. And although they say names, and although they disregard you, and although they miscount you or don't even include you, that is going to make you strong for what this world is going to bring, and it's preparing you for what you're about to come into. So I just want you to stay strong and know that you are loved, and know that we are here for you as the elders of this community, and that we are, you can probably access all of our social medias and get a hold of us if you need someone to talk to, because I always I wanted to know, who can I turn to? Who can I run to with these situations that I'm going through? And there was nobody, but so I'm offering myself to be able to listen and talk if you want. So, you are not alone. I love you with all of my heart, and you are going to make it. You are going to survive. Life gets better. You just got to trust the process. And I want to thank everyone, Elton, Josie, Precious, and Titus, for being a part of this wonderful panel. I learned something from all your perspectives. You guys are all precious, and love is hard, but love is achievable. So thank you for having me.
Just fairly quickly, for the young ones out there, they have it's a different time, right? And so I just want to let them know that there are opportunities for love. There are great examples with my relatives here who are in committed relationships, that there is love out there for you as well. So just take a chance. And I'm still going to be that auntie. Yay, just kidding. But until then, everyone take care and be safe.
All right. Yeah. Thank you all so much. And thank you to your families who support all of you, to your loved ones who keep you going. We couldn't have this conversation without people being there for you too. So big thanks to them. Whew, I feel like I need some tissues after that one. That was really great. That was helpful. I needed that good energy. So yeah, thank you. All right. So I think we are going to wrap up with this panel. So, if there are questions, maybe afterwards we'll be able to circle back on those. I know that we have members of our Diné Pride board that were watching those closely too. So just really glad for everyone who was able to join our conversation this evening. So next up, we are going to go ahead and share a short video that our executive director shared and found from Fox 13 News from Utah, and it's an update on marriage equality. So whenever that video is available,
Navajo Nation comes 4 years after the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in favor of marriage equality. But that ruling stops at tribal borders.
And so it's going to take the Navajo people to change its own laws.
LGBTQ rights activists on the Navajo Nation are asking the tribe's council to repeal its 2005 ban on same-sex marriage.
In 2005, the Navajo Nation Council and a group of very conservative evangelical tribal lawyers put forward that law, which continues to be the law of the land today.
The push to repeal the ban is a call from the Navajo Nation's recent Pride celebration, and it's gaining momentum. They're not necessarily asking the tribal council to allow marriage.
We're actually going to the root of the cause of why that marriage ban even exists, and that's ensuring that we provide protections for gender identity and sexual orientation of our community members on Navajo, and that is protected under Navajo law.
In 2015, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled to allow same-sex marriage nationwide, but that doesn't apply to tribes.
This goes back to 1896.
University of Utah law professor Alex Skabeen says tribes are not bound by many things in the U.S. Constitution, but many do try to mirror state laws.
A lot of the states used to prohibit same-sex marriage. Now they cannot. So it's interesting what the tribes are going to have to address that.
At the governor's recent Native American summit, the Navajo Nation's vice president was asked about the push to repeal the marriage ban.
As you know, I'm a former pastor, and so my feelings on that is God initiated marriage between a man and a woman, and so we would hold to that. And I certainly don't want to put down other people's feelings on that. Again, I just kind of go back to the truth of the Bible and what does that say. So God's always my bottom line whenever I'm in doubt.
So you would not support that?
I would not support that.
But Diné Equality believes it will have widespread support among the Navajo Nation government.
How do we eliminate a discriminatory law that's telling our kids that they're not valued anymore? How do we ensure that our tribal leaders are responsive to the needs of the suicide rate that's happening on Navajo among our community?
This week, a council subcommittee voted in favor of supporting the Equality Act. The full Navajo Nation Council could consider it in the fall. On the Hill, Ben Winslow, Fox 13 News, Utah.
I'd like to say thank you to our really good friend Ben Winslow, who did that amazing story. Again, my name is Alray Nelson. I'm the executive director for Navajo Nation Pride and the lead organizer for Diné Equality. And as you heard from our panelists earlier, they had a really in-depth conversation about marriage. You actually seen for yourselves that we're here, we're in your communities, we're also off the Navajo Nation and raising our own families there, but Navajo Nation is always home for us. And that's a key thing for our Navajo Nation leaders and tribal leaders across Indian country to understand, is that we've been here since time immemorial. We're your family members, we're your relatives, we're your best friends. We're there in the communities with you every single day of your lives. And so you can't discount us out. And that's one of the key reasons why Diné Equality and Navajo Nation Pride has has pressured the Navajo Nation Council to push forward the Marriage Equality Act that will be introduced within the next couple of days in honor of Dene Pride Week on the Navajo Nation. So now I'm going to bring in a couple of people for our next panel conversation. We're going to talk about the trends, law, and policy that's happening around Indian country, but more specifically what's happening on Navajo. So the first person I'd like to introduce is the amazing Panda. She's actually a Dene Pride champion, formerly in a couple of years back, but also Miss Maddie Jim is also your hostess with the mostest this coming weekend for Dene Pride 2022. Hi, Maddie.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you perfectly.
Okay, awesome.
You can introduce yourself, Maddie.
Oh, yat a anol swashe Mary Jim and Shenash Ejidan Shlin, Kia Ani Bashishin, Tobahan Dashadot Snajini Dashanala 8 the Nanshle. Hi everyone, I'm your fabulous panda, Miss Maddie Jim, and I am on Tewa land in Albuquerque, coming to you virtually. So hello everyone.
Thank you for that, Maddie. Now I'm going to go ahead and bring another individual. Hey, girl. And this is Dwayne Crank, who works with the Navajo Nation Office for Government Development and is a policy analyst. Hey, Dwayne. Oh, you're muted. You're muted, girl.
Okay, sorry about that. Hello,
good.
everybody. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's and everybody else on the web. Shay Dwayne Crank and shit. As a London shop, it's on the budget chain. Twitch any dash national. I'm originally from El Jato area, so it's good to be on the panel. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you for that, Dwayne. Good to see you here. Now I want to bring in another person that was part of the original Dene Coalition for Cultural Preservation that stood up against the Dene Marriage Act in 2005, was one of its lead organizers for that coalition that got not only signatures, but brought together Navajo people, the LGBTQ community, to rally against the Dene Marriage Act when it was in legislation form. So that's all. I'm going to introduce my brother here, Mr. Sherrick Roanhorse. Hey, Sherrick.
Hey there, good evening. Thank you all, Ray. I'm Sherrick Roanhorse. I'm from the community of Steamboat, Ganado, Cornfields area. And I'm just couple of shilling how the port of the other than the good to see everyone. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Sherrick. The other individual I want to introduce is joining us by phone. As you know, we have a lot of our participants that are living in the middle of nowhere in the res, and that's what the Navajo Nation government has been trying to do recently, is making sure we up broadband services and cell phone service. But she is actually an amazing activist within our Navajo community, has always stood up for us on the chapter level. She's the vice chairwoman of a commission for her chapter. She'll introduce herself briefly. Lynn, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Lynn. Hi, sister.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry for the internet connection, but I moved from AT&T to T-Mobile. Never get T-Mobile. But yeah, for allowing me to be a part of this panelist. And just as though 타반 신으로 초점이 bashin 아도 토리치니 다시 체다도 다자네 다시 나를 I used to nasha the total I nasha, but I'm relocation but now we moved out to Navajo, Arizona, so that's where I'm at. Although it's an honor to be a part of this panel. I don't know how I feel that I'm a commission vice president. So yeah, and thank you for allowing me to be here.
Oyate, thank you for that, Lynn. And so the final individual I'm going to bring into the conversation here is my brother, my girlfriend. You all know recently she was appointed as one of the Navajo appointees under President Joe Biden and from Vice President Kamala Harris. He works as the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Tribal Affairs within the U.S. Department of Transportation. Within it, he also works under the amazing Secretary Pete Buttigieg, former mayor from Indiana. Hey, Orlando Teller. Orlando, you are muted, girl.
Talking to myself. Oh my God, per usual. Oh, yat eshe nash ejedenet hachin in slot head lini bashichin. Twitchini dashiche do shin dashinale ekut out denensle. My name is Orlando Teller, and I am proud to be on this call. I am excited. I could just spit all sorts of things. I think this is a phenomenal panel. Despite Sherrick being on the call, it's quite amazing to be part of my fellow LGBTQI leadership. El Rey, you have been nothing but our platform and our Plymouth Rock, if you will, in addressing the issues of equity, the issues of resilience, the issues that make us who we are and make us successful as an individual in our family. So I'm really excited. Thank you. Here in DC. So I'm really glad to be here with you all. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for that, Deputy Assistant Secretary Teller. And we look forward to hearing more from you tonight. So now I'm going to bring back another individual into this conversation. My youngest sister, the amazing, fabulous, resilient matriarch, our councilwoman, one of 3 on the 24th Navajo Nation Council, the amazing council delegate, Charlene. So, hey, Char.
Hey, brother. Thank you for inviting me to be on a panel, giving me a little bit too much credit there, but I appreciate it. I love you. Thank you, guys. I'm excited to be on today's discussion. My clans are Nanish Ejanatan, the Nanshlon, but Anibashichin. And I'm originally from Sweetwater. I do represent 5 chapters in the southern Utah area and northern Arizona. So they are Totlacan, Red Mesa. Oh my gosh, I hate it when you do this part of the introduction. You mess up your own chapters. Mexican Water, Tisnos, Red Mesa, Aneth, and of course my home chapter. So thank you again. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you for that, council delegate. So let me go ahead and bring in everyone into the conversation here. And then of course you all know that Lynn Curley is joining us in from her service here. Lynn, if you can, get on top of your hill. I know you have a hill behind your house. You have better service there, girl.
That's where I had the horse corral at, girl.
All right, Lynn, as though you can hear us, that's perfect. So the first question we have for our panelists tonight, as you know, we're having a conversation deeply about a really deep focus on marriage equality, because I know that many of you come from different places where you've been at the forefront and also on the ground level, really pushing forward not only for marriage equality, but more specifically, and the larger thing is LGBTQ rights in Indian country. So the first question I want to pass off to, let's say, Dwayne. With the work that you've been doing for Navajo as a policy analyst, first question is, as an advocate for LGBTQ rights, what does the Navajo Nation, or maybe even Indian country as a whole, have to do right now to just really accept us as their relatives, as LGBTQ people?
That is a long-winded conversation, but I'll try to compress it into a short area. But I think right now what we have to do is actually focus in on our rights within our community. And usually that involves laws and legislations in regards to our employment, our marriage, and so forth, and just becoming equal to our cisgendered members in the community. So if we kind of focus in on more than just, let's say that since our Navajo Nation does not have a constitution, and we are looking something to write something like that and try to have a constitution within the Navajo Nation, then we focus in on LGBTQ rights, making sure we have access to employment rights, making sure we're not discriminated against, and also when it comes to marriage equality, and how we are able to, even if the Navajo Nation in regards to our traditions and our actual ceremonies when it comes to that does not allow that, then we focus in on outside marriages, Western civilization marriages, where we get our marriage license from the state and bring it back in and say, okay, well, the state recognizes us, so you as a Navajo Nation needs to recognize my marriage and my love for this individual and have them on my insurance and all these other portions of that. So I always hate this term when it's used, like the grassroots and everything like that, because it's people, individuality. It is not just one rounded person. It's always in a community. And I think if we focus in on our community, that would be the biggest portion of making sure that we round up our LGBTQ community and have each other's backs. and understanding and making sure that we not only show but also voice our opinions in these matters, especially for like Council Delegate So. I'm appreciative of her for being able to communicate and have them aware of who she is, and for her voice on the council. And that says a lot, saying that we are present within, and then also the within our administration. We have a lot of LGBTQs in the administration portion of. I'm a policy analyst. I'm out and gay, but also I identify more than that. So if we can continue in these motions, I think little steps by steps. I wish we could go, jump forward and say, hey, we have rights here now, but some small steps like taking you, Mr. Nelson, and you making sure, and then like also Maddie, and for all her advocacy, and the deputy assistant or Mr. Teller, their advocacy. So everybody has done so much, little steps, but together we've actually accomplished quite a bit, I think. So that'll be my answer. Thank you.
Maddie, same question for you. As an advocate for LGBTQ rights, what does Navajo Nation or maybe even Indian country as a whole have to do now to just accept us as their relatives?
I think for me, what comes to mind right away is that it's not about the acceptance, because I think a lot of people already kind of accept us and who we are and what we're doing. For example, like we wouldn't have the festivities in Window Rock if we weren't accepted. But I think it's just the small percentage, or even just a little over maybe half of the percentage of people who don't view things the way we feel that they should. I'm very appreciative of what Dwayne said about our tribal leaders, our council members who do support us, who are speaking up for us, who are speaking up on our behalf, and doing that advocacy for us also, and giving us that voice. And going back to what Dwayne said about ceremonies, a lot of that has to do with who we are. Like I tell people, like we go to ceremonies and you see queens cooking, you see queens doing the roles just instinctively. Like we're not told what to do, we already know what to do. So looking at that, there's a lot of acceptance with families, there's a lot of acceptance here and there. But I think because of Western culture, people have learned different ways in looking at things, and they speak out on behalf of that. So I think that's what's hindering them in accepting who we are and accepting the fact that we are part of a population where we are of equal value per se. And like even just the word, the ne, meaning of the people. And if we're being of the people, why don't we have gay marriage? Why don't we have the rights that we do within our tribal communities? And what's hindering our tribal leaders to speak out against this, where we know that it's wrong to not have the rights of other people? Like I would love for a lot of stuff to change and look at it in that sense. And it's unfortunate that as an advocate, sometimes I have to talk about my own tribal community or my own tribal nation saying we have a ban on gay marriage, and that's unfortunate. And a lot of times cisgender people are the ones who are making those laws for us. And I'm like, okay, what do they have to do with our relationships and stuff? So I think some of that was also mentioned in the previous presentation, but I think it's more of like they just need to do the right thing. The people that are against what we want just have to do the right thing. Just have to take that initiative and give us what we need to move forward alongside them. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Maddie. That's a lot of wisdom there. I want to transition over to Orlando. Orlando, you know that you've done a lot of work with Navajo as a tribal employee, as being a deputy director there for a major division. In addition to that, the same question for you, like, what do you think Navajo, or even on Indian country in that level, because you work with over 500 plus tribal nations now in your position, and that as a tribal affairs deputy assistant secretary for DOT, what does Indian country need to do to really accept all of us as Indigenous LGBTQ?
Thank you for that question, Elray. It's good to see you, Maddie. The last time I saw you, you were running around as a big old bear. And I think this discussion addresses, in all honesty, a core individual value, something we call acceptance and love. And in all honesty, it's also showcasing the equity that we're not feeling from our own nation. And a part of that conversation is the integrity of our leadership. And the integrity is part of the allyship that we really, of course, celebrate with our leaders. We celebrate with the policies that they provide and approve. And in Indian country, with all 574 tribes, as well as the villages in Alaska and the Hawaiian villages, it's a varied situation. I'm saying we like I'm with a person, but no, I have experienced tribal nations that have fully accept the LGBTQ community and providing and understanding and supporting the equality marriage. And also have witnessed some tribes that have been so Catholicized, and so that's a curious thing to observe. Obviously, my position is to support throughout Indian country, to provide advocacy, and to be I guess a mentor for those that are interested in. You all know that I have a wonderful mentor. I have expressed and shared who that mentor is, and he has been a phenomenal person in my life, and has shared with me, some of his thoughts on this equity issue. He and his husband, Jack Jackson Jr., and his husband, who actually is my stylist tonight and my stylist every day. So I have an award-winning stylist on my team. So it's important for us to continue this dialogue. Even after we have the marriage equality, we have to continue this dialogue. We have to remind our cisgendered folks that, we're here, we're queer, and we're going to continue being that because we're proud people. And in our traditional stories, they talk about how we saved the generations. Talk about how we, as Maddie said, and I've seen this at Nada, the girls are cooking, they're cleaning. We talk about meticulous that Chosh was, where the girls were taking over the kitchen. Fabulous. And we just have our own way, and sometimes that makes folks uncomfortable, but that's not on us. It's on them, right? It's on them. And we continue being those fabulous human beings that we are, and continue being successful, continue showcasing, our namesake, our mother's name, our mother's clan, and keeping them proud. Because that's who's important to me, is maintaining my mother's name and making sure that she's proud of me.
Thank you so much for that, Orlando. And I want to bring in Lynn to this. I know, Lynn, you said you want to input some information into, or you had a comment about this particular question. Lynn, are you there? Lynn, you're on mute.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me? Okay. First of all, I want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to answer on this on behalf. It's an honor to be in the presence of Miss Charlene So. Yeah, and thank you for being here as council delegate, and for all expressing yourself and voicing your just being there to support where you're at, where you're at right now, and your mother. I always followed you.
Okay, I think we lost Lynn there. Lynn, if you can hear us, you got cut off there. If perhaps jump on top of your truck. Yay, your dually truck. Let me bring into the conversation here before I go to our councilwoman, Mr. Roanhorse, Sherrick. Instead of really focusing on this particular question, let's go on to the second one that's really focused on just your perspective, how do we, and this is from your experience since 2005 and the work you were doing as young Sherrick at that time, and Navajo Nation and politics is completely different. Um, what would it mean to educate and to like build support politically for our community? I get people want to know that information or that experience for you.
Awesome. Thanks, Alray. And I'm sitting on my dually truck outside.
Yay!
I'll pick up Maddie in a bit. And we'll go run around town.
Maddie to the fault.
Well, thanks so much. Yeah, through the years, I've got to think about, what would I do? What can I do now, and what can I do to play my part? And I don't always have all the answers, but there's a lot of support that has been built over the years, and I want to commend all the folks who are tuning in right now. It's because of your support, and it's because of your participation, and it's because of your voice that you're changing things right now. And I do think that's what it's going to take to really turn things around in terms of advocacy. I do believe that, there's a really strong voice, especially within younger folks. It's a different generation than mine. What do they call Generation Z? And even my nieces and nephews are of a different mindset that I am. And they're a little more hardcore in a sense that they're willing to take a risk. Me, I'm a little more, I'm on the edge between taking a risk, but also being a little more conservative. But that's also because of my values as well. But I think it's going to take folks that are willing to take a risk. And so why I'm saying it, I'm commending everyone is with Navajo Nation Pride, with what has taken place at Windrock. That's a huge deal. A couple years back, I did go and join Alray and the whole crew along with Orlando, and we cruised to the Windrock, and that was just mind-blowing for me to see families, to see grandmas, to see our nieces and nephews. That's what it's going to take to change things and turn things around. When our leaders see our families and our relatives there, standing together, that means a lot. And I think that we're on the right path. Of course, we can always do more, but I think that we are on the right path. And collectively, we can pull together. And with this upcoming Saturday Pride, it's going to be awesome. And I think it's going to get stronger. But that's really what it takes to change things around, is bringing everyone together. The more we are together, and the more families that we have together, the stronger our advocacy will be. So anyway, maybe that's what you wanted to hear, Alray, but I wanted to share that. And I think that, Navajo Nation Pride is well on its way to doing some amazing things, whether it's equality, marriage equality, whether it's trying to, protect our, our murdered Indigenous sisters. It's a real issue, especially with, a lot of our girls, on the streets. And I think Maddie can attest to that. It's horrendous. And it's a huge issue, and it's been happening over the last 20 or 30 years, but it's been silent. And those are some real issues. And I do think that, just by us coming together, we can start diving into these issues. And if we're together, we can really decide upon together, what are some of those issues we want to take on? What's next besides Diné equality? With Diné marriage, is it, fighting against violence? What is it? Anyway, I'll stop there. Thanks so much.
I really appreciate that, Sherrick. And you really segged us away into the next question as we go over to our councilwoman. And one of the key things is that Council Delegate Eugene So, who is he's disabled, but he's also a veteran that served our country. He's probably the oldest member serving on the 24th Navajo Nation Council. He's not running for re-election this year. Last time I had a conversation with Che, it was his first time in Washington, D.C., and I was there as a staffer for him. And he was just like, wow, because he's been to a lot of places, but he's never been to D.C. And it was amazing to see that. I know that Deputy Assistant Secretary Teller actually met with Delegate So at that time in D.C. This was like almost past wintertime. And I had a conversation with him, and he said, I'm actually retiring, and I'm leaving public service, and it's time for someone younger to take over. But the only reason I share that story about my Che Eugene So from Chin Lee is that he's the one that's sponsoring this legislation, and co-sponsors in addition to that includes our Madam Chair, Eugene Charles Newton, and you also have Council Delegate Nathaniel Brown. And in addition to our other co-sponsor here is our Honorable Councilwoman that's joining us tonight, Charlene So. And so it says a lot, and this, my understanding, this legislation is going to drop in the hopper tomorrow or on Monday, and they want to get this pushed forward on behalf of the Navajo people. We made several different amendments to the former legislation that was introduced, and we're going to see where that goes. But when we organized over 2 weeks, Sherrick, we got over 1,500 petition signatures from Navajo people all across the country. And we did that in response to organized religion on Navajo, because you had several different churches, our Christian brothers and sisters, that were against this and came up with a petition, and several different church members signed it. And they were against it for several different reasons. But that comes to this next question for you, Councilwoman So. And I know, Lynn, I'm going to bring you back into this as well. Before I go to Councilwoman Lynn, is your service a little better? I'm glad you're getting blessed with rain out there. Girl, send it this way. Lynn, are you there? Okay, it looks like Lynn's still trying to figure her way. She's probably driving around the mountains or something. So I'll wait for her. But no, Councilwoman, the question I have for you is that there's proposed amendments to the Diné Marriage Act. Councilwoman, she should jump back on. Let's all wait for her. I think everyone's having a really bad service here. So no, the thing is that the question I'm going to ask Councilwoman Charso, since she's a co-sponsor for the Marriage Equality Act, is really focused around, like, what does the vision look like if this were to pass for the Navajo people? So that's the question I was going to ask Delegate So, but I'm going to pass it off to you, Dwayne, because it's something that you have been working on, and it's something that's in your purview because you work for the legislative branch and you do policy, you analyze policy. So that question for you from a policy analyst position perspective of, like, what does this look like for Navajo? What type of impact would it have?
I really think, I haven't read the legislation yet. I did read the prior one. It was well written, and the main thing I think we need to focus in, and I told you that when we were one time together, is if there's anybody who gets married off the reservation and wants to be recognized on the reservation, then that should be the main emphasis. I know for me, I'm traditional, and I really value my tradition. And what Elton was saying prior to this is that there's a fine line in the definition of marriage between a man and a woman in our tradition, but also I hold dear to the fact that love is love, and I want my love to be recognized, not just with myself or my family, but with where I work, and that's including my insurance or whatever benefits that I'm able to get to be passed on to that individual in case of anything happens to me, God forbid. But in saying that is making sure that the language in the Marriage Act or whatever the legislation focuses on making sure that equality is the bigger part of this. And I want to say, first of all, thank you. I should have started off with that. Thank you to you and all the people that have worked hard on it, all the delegates who are supporting this, and those who oppose it. I think we'll have the harder time of understanding why we're pushing this. And I think we're still saturated so much with Western ideology and religion. And sometimes it's infiltrated into our views when it comes to our culture and our tradition. Because I've heard from medicine men and different individuals who have those teachings of our past. They've always stated that this was a part of us. This was always a part of who we were. Natle, the word, or whatever you want, however you identify yourselves, it was always a part of our culture. And for that to be pushed aside because of Western ideology or Western Christianity or whatever, says a big thing. It says a lot about how far we're kind of going and which direction we have been going. And a lot of Navajos have kept on saying we need to go back to our culture, but yet no, we need to stop with gay rights and our gay brothers and our gay sisters and all that stuff. And where do we really want to go back to if we're going to say that? Because if that's going back further than our colonization, then that's also including us. And that's where I'm coming from. And that's where I want to make sure that when I do talk and when I'm being recognized, that is where I'm coming from, because I carry longer lineage than what was brought on here to our land. So in regards to your legislation, I look forward to reading the new one. I look forward to making sure that we're all represented in any way, trans, gay, lesbian, whatever way that somebody identifies themselves, but also in their connection to another person. I always advocate for all marriages within our culture, but there are some ones who don't have the ability right now, and I really want to make sure that we're just wanting to make sure that our love is recognized, and that's where I'm coming from. So thank you so much to the delegates, for those supporting it, Delegate So, and also El Rey, thank you. So that's it.
Thank you for that, Dwayne. And then, so Councilwoman, the question really was focused around on the Marriage Act and how amendments are being made to kind of structure it so that we bring marriage equality to the largest sovereign nation in the United States. And for our viewers, thank you for joining in from Harvard, from Texas SU, UNM, and NMSU, Diné College. I know you all have your Pride Week events, and we're one of the events you're streaming tonight as part of your community celebration. But also shout out to ACLU Utah, ACLU New Mexico, ACLU Washington D.C. for being here and hearing this conversation about the largest tribal nation in the United States and how we're trying to protect our sovereignty. So, Chairwoman, so it comes back to the questions around the Diné Marriage Act. And as you saw in the first legislation that was introduced and that was pulled by Delegate So, it really focused on Eugene So, I don't want to mix that up, but it was pulled for several different reasons. But one of them was the legislation was in place and put into place so that it was archaic, especially when you look at domestic relations among our people. And that's the key thing I don't think no one really recognizes, that it literally says in Navajo law today that a Navajo woman must get the permission of her married husband to make financial decisions on her future. And that's still Navajo law. It's still tribal code. And so that's a key component. And we've always said this legislation to repeal or amend the Diné Marriage Act is not focused specifically on marriage, but it's also protecting the rights of our women. And so what are your thoughts about all this, Delegate So, and where do you see this legislation going when we push it forward?
So to begin with, yes, we definitely need to educate our leaders. There's a lot of miscommunication. There's a lot of misunderstanding, and not many of our leaders understand or even know that fact, that a woman has to get her husband's approval to make those decisions. And not only that, but sharing some of the statistics that are affecting our LGBTQI community. What are the statistics related to the MMIW? How much of it is related to murder and suicide? How much is related to domestic abuse, substance abuse? And, I'm hoping that we have enough time to educate my colleagues on the 24th Navajo Nation Council. It's going to be a lot of work, but, as we move forward, the vision that I have with this is to help our next generation, because for years and years and years, we go through generational trauma. And, it's about time we put a stop to that. It's time that we educate our leaders and my colleagues that this is a continuous cycle. We need to break that cycle. And for us to get back on a healing path so that our next children who are going to be carrying on our clan system, our heritage, our lineage, they're going to be in a healthy state of mind, and they're going to have a strong spirit. And, thinking about that, it's just, I really try to reach out to my colleagues. The thing that we are lacking is just the one-sided. I guess it's just where people try to say, you know, I'm not trying to come off in this way, but gay marriage is not, it's not the right thing to do. It's not within our Diné laws and way of life. And, you know, they pretty much set that standard already. And then, you know, I always question, how are you able to say that? And you're already being biased. And you're trying to set the standard and the forefront, saying that it's not that I'm against you. You pretty much are. And when we come into those kind of conversations, we really have to structure our words for them to understand, but also to have the thing that they do lack is the patience to understand too. And you know, where is the teaching within our culture? How many of our leaders actually know our old teachings? And the thing that I always come across as a leader when it with the previous legislation was religion. How does Christianity and other faith play into this? You know, and I always question that to them. I question them with another question. How does divorce play in with your Christian faith? It is a sin to get divorced. It is a sin to lust after another. And so how these are just double standards that they're setting forth, and we need to tell them like, hey, this is not right. Everybody has a right to love whoever they want. They have a right to be happy, and nobody has any judgment on that fact. And so when it comes to that, you know, I do get defensive as a council delegate when it comes to this, because I've seen some of the effects from bullying. And then, you know, we have leaders too that take a stance on bullying, but yet they don't understand their repercussions and how they're affecting the LGBT community with their comments. In a way, it comes down to some sort of bullying as well. And when we try to understand all these aspects, it takes forms of education. And how are we taking the right away from our families, our relatives, when they just want to adopt a child? We have one of the highest foster care rates in the state of Utah foster care. A lot of our Navajo children are being adopted and taken off the Navajo reservation. So they get, they're pretty much detached from their heritage, their language, their homeland, and they relocate as far as like, you know, Minnesota, Maryland, and then they just lose touch of who they all are. Those are some of the things that they need to understand, how it impacts our future children as well. So again, thank you for the question, Elray. I apologize that the video went out. I'm in beautiful Bluff, Utah right now. We have our Bluff Pride, and we're doing a lot of tie-dyeing. It's raining here. So I just want to give a shout out to Bluff, Utah. If you're around, swing by. So thank you, brother.
You're on mute, Elray. You're talking to yourself.
Oh my God, there you go. Hey, thank you for that, sister. So let's move on with the conversations as we go to concluding the conversation for tonight. But the key part that I also want to bring into this conversation is you, Maddie, and with this next question about how do we weave traditional stories of LGBTQ from our creation story to really push forward a more inclusive tribal nation, or maybe a more inclusive Navajo nation?
That's a very good question, and I think that would require a long answer from other people too. But for me, I think learning like our traditional stories, our traditional ways, and just like I was talking about, like the word "Diné," we are of the people, and I think many words can be said also too. And in the question that you're asking, the answer is like are not Anis or even just the philosophy of leadership. What's the framework like with Nahat'a, we're the planning, the Imna is the living, and then oh my gosh, what was the other one? I think was Sahas and Ado and Saha case, the thinking. I think a lot of that is playing part in what leaders need to look at, and people need to look at, even our own people need to look at that philosophy in our traditional ways and learning our culture and our traditions. And like true story is that when I was younger in mid school, I was pushing myself away from our culture and our tradition, even our language, because of being teased and saying that, oh, you're just a resi and stuff. And so I was like, I don't want to learn my language. I want to perfect English, and I want to communicate and be like them, not realizing who I really was. So when I became a young adult and working in a nursing home and learning from the elders, the stories, learning from the elders, the words and the phrases, and even the songs and the prayers, and just them explaining things to me in a way where I understood still, and realizing like, this is me and this is where I need to go back to. So when I tell my story, I also tell people that I hold people who know our language and our culture and our tradition in highest regard. I put them up highest on the pedestal, way more than a doctor, a lawyer, a cop, or a president, because they can teach me my language, they can teach me my culture. And I think a lot of that has to play in what we're wanting to do with our movement, and how that's a part of the teaching, like the traditional ways, like the creation story, the separation of sexes, and that was mentioned earlier about how we were instrumental in that, and even that story is being changed a lot by people, and them saying, oh, that didn't happen and that wasn't that way, or you guys are making up that story. But that is that oral tradition that was passed on from one generation to the next generation, and we still have that. But fortunately, people are trying to change that narrative. So I think there's a lot of stuff that could be utilized in our traditional teachings, in the work that we do nowadays, in the advocacy of what we're doing. And if we implement that and really show the connection with what we're trying to do from that Western perspective into that cultural perspective, and weave that rug of equality, or weave that rug of change, and learn a lot from others. And I think I can just ramble on, but I think traditional ways and values does play a big part in the work that we do in the advocacy. And I think it's going to make that change when we speak our language. Like for me, like I think it gives more of an oomph, or it gives more power when I speak my language to somebody and explain to them, like, this is who I am, this is where I'm from. Like even though I identify as a native trans woman in Western concepts, I am the net first and foremost. I am the net first and foremost. I'm that's my lineage. And then I identify in that concept. So if I'm related to you and you're and with neck S system, why are you denying me these things? So I think all those can intertwine in some of the teachings that we do, and we can be creative in that. And a lot of times I think as leaders, as tribal leaders who are not listening to us, like, we need to talk to them in that way and educate them in that way, because that is truth and they can't argue and say you're wrong. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you so much, Maddie. And kudos to Elton, who's on the chat here. He's basically just saying, teach, teach it, girl, teach it, Shimasane. We love you so much, Maddie. And thank you for being one of our matriarchs in the community for our families. Sure, let me bring you to this component with the same thing. And I know you probably have a different perspective in many cases, but the question is really around, like, how do we weave traditional stories of us as LGBTQ to, especially from our creation story, to really push forward a more inclusive Navajo Nation?
Thank you, Alray. Thank you, Maddie. That was awesome. You know, I always look to Maddie and, you know, my other sisters for guidance and wisdom. And even I always also look to Orlando, you know, and as, you know, Delegate So mentioned, it's all about families and really about our next generation and how do we all tie that together. And I really liked how Maddie mentioned that, you know, our values and who we are as Navajo or Diné people really, you know, it's passed on through generations, and we really do need to, you know, take that seriously. And, you know, our language and culture is an LGBT issue, and, you know, that's who makes us who we are as Navajo people. But sorry, Alray, I was just listening to Maddie, and I do think that's very true. But the next step is, you know, the best thing that we can do as, you know, as peers is to do our best to help our families, to help our nieces and nephews, so that they're ready to take on their roles in this world, and we share with them some of those teachings. And if we build relationships with our younger ones, we're able to share with them our perspective about our worldview, as well as the history of LGBTQ plus folks in the Navajo world. But that's my spiel. It really goes back to our values and our language and culture. You're muted, Alri. But just going back, already even I'll stop talking. Going back to going to Dinner Pride in Window, just seeing grandmas, aunties, nieces and nephews, cousins, all in one, especially with the girls doing the show. I mean, that's pretty powerful. And if you're going to change anything policy-wise in Window Rock or even nationally, you have to show that. And it shows a human face. It shows that we are all family. And, again, commend all of you for, really standing up to things. And, Dwayne, I'm glad that you are there, at home, really looking at these policies and really, trying to determine what are those next steps. It's going to be tricky. I don't even know what the vote will be. I don't, maybe Delegate So has a better perspective, but we'll see. But the other thing we also need to look at is, what are our legal options? If the states struck down their marriage laws, the same thing can happen at home. And so I imagine that we would need to, bring resources together to look at that, to study that, to take that whole thing down. And once it goes down, and I know it will go down at some point, what are the next steps? And I think that goes back to your question, Alray, how do we educate our family and our community members? And I think that, Dinner Pride's in the right direction, by showing that, we are a family, we're here. And we're going to keep moving together forward as family. I'll stop talking now. Thanks.
No, thank you so much for that, Sherrick. I'm making sure I'm not muted here. No, and let's go and transition to the ending part of this panel conversation, because I know some of you are pressed for time this evening. I know, Delegate, so you have special session right now where you're going to be voting whether or not we're going to allocate over $1.17 billion in American Rescue Act funding, and you have a huge responsibility.
Yay, good job.
Yeah,
I don't want to say finally, but yes, we totally need that. Spend that money. We need it.
And so we have individuals like our Councilwoman Charlene So that's doing that, and she represents communities up in the Utah portion. But we also have Deputy Assistant Secretary Teller, who's staying here, and it's almost freaking 10 o'clock. It's 10 o'clock now, girl. So she's in her pajamas and she's ready to go to sleep. And so I guess the last part of this too is the question that I want each and every one of you to answer. We've been doing this last question for every single panel this whole week. And so the question is really around, like, can you each share, words right now to that one young gay, lesbian, trans, queer, two-spirit, or even a kid that's questioning, that maybe watched this video tonight or watching it later on to the future, words of encouragement that maybe listen to. What do you want to say to that one kid? I'll hand it off to Dwayne.
All right. Well, I really think it takes a lot to mentally get around all our trauma from our past. And I'm very thankful that I found some amazing individuals from high school to my later in life in college, who I still hold very dear in my life. And I think by surrounding yourself by very positive and very influential people who keep you in the right direction at all times and support your decisions, whatever you do and as a person, I think that really does help. So for those who are young, just always surround yourself with positive and good people. And sometimes I know it's very hard to find that, but they're out there. And then one thing I will say to my younger generation, even our current generation and our older generation, is get yourself out there and get to know your candidates. Get to know, right now we're in election seasons, and right now a lot of these people out there campaigning are making promises about our future and about our land and about our rights and stuff. And all of those are important. But being a young individual, I think a lot of them at this point have the youth vote. And I think that right now is a very dangerous part that they don't really aware of, that the youth are so abundant on the reservation and that they have a positive impact if they just put their power and thought to use. So make sure you hold your delegates accountable in your areas, or even our presidents at this point, our vice presidents, what they saying that we don't count as in as the LGBT. Our marriage doesn't count. He holds his Christian values higher than our right to be loved as individuals. So again, I really think that by getting yourselves involved in politics, by getting yourselves educated about the issues within your areas, within the Navajo Nation, and even with the national level, what's going on right now with the courts having a very conservative panel is very dangerous for us, and it trickles down in that motion. And also what's going on globally with international, with the war, and those who have, for just being gay, people get killed, and in other countries. I hope we never get to that point within the United States, but with the climates and everything like that, of what we see on TikTok, on these videos where we say LGBTQ should be killed right when they're walking out, these Christians from the pulpit, they're saying this about us. So getting yourself involved, getting yourself those knowledges, and then making sure you have the right influences around you, I think makes a world of difference. And I really want to say I'm here also as an advocate. I'm here to educate as best as I can, and I really appreciate those who hold higher offices and are paving the way for somebody like me to be in that area also. So I want to thank for all my elders. I wish I knew them personally, who've actually sat in my seat as a policy analyst, or Charlene So and Carl Slater, and those who are LGBTQ identified right now, who actually are paving the way. So thank you for being pioneers, and thank you for always speaking voices for us. I really hold you dearly for that, and El Rain for those individuals. And Sherrick, say hi to Brandon for me. Thank you. And Maddie, love you for all your advocacy.
Thank you so much for that, Dwayne. Love you, girl. So now let's hand it off to, make sure I have my listing here. I want to make sure I hand this off to you, Tiller. I want to make sure you get tucked into bed.
Here's Twisana, she said. That's
Yay.
why she said.
Get you ready for your yay.
Well, number one, I'd like to express and share with you that this administration, the Biden-Harris administration, has been completely supportive of us, LGBTQ, and with over 200 LGBTQ plus appointees that are serving our people throughout this great nation. I think that just shows an effort and a testament of the change that is happening, the large tsunami that's coming across, and showcasing the fact that we are hardworking, dedicated, intelligent folks, and that we are doing everything we can to make our everyday lives throughout not only Indian country, but America better. That showcases with my boss, Secretary Pete, and myself and others at the DOT that are not only comfortable to express and be open, but also share our stories. In fact, yesterday I was at the White House on a panel discussing my role as an openly gay Navajo. And so those kind of topics are so influential and so imperative that it makes the culture at work to be, an opportunity to just be ourselves. Now, what I would say to myself, my 10-year-old self, my 15-year-old self, and those folks are out there, you nerds, I love you all. And the fact that you're queer, that you feel like you're different, yet you're book smart, you have a sharp tongue, and that you happen to be athletic, and that you're good at something, yet you're hiding yourself. Stop that. You are so unique. Your authentic self is absolutely beautiful. And the fact that you are not the norm, that's okay. That's okay. Because one day you're going to realize how intelligent you are, how gifted you are in what you do, that you can do what you need to do to make a change in the world. And that your wiry body, your goofy voice, your knob knees, your bushy hair, all that's going to come together. And at this point, you're going to be making so much changes in the world for the betterment of yourself, your family, your community, your nation, and your, when I say your nation, I'm talking about Navajo Nation and the nation. Those efforts and those awkward moments, unfortunately and fortunately, make you a stronger person. It doesn't stop the bullying. It doesn't stop anything else. But you have to understand and know that you're stronger than that, and that you are a beautiful human person, and that who you love and what you love has no, does not demean you, does not make you less than human. In fact, it makes you a beautiful person. So you'll become a butterfly, and you'll fly with the wind, and it'll take you higher and higher until you feel like you need to come back down to earth and take a moment, because those are times that we need to recollect ourselves with family. Those are times when family ground us and they love us for who we are. So continue being that authentic person. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Mr. Teller. So let's go ahead and go over to you, Maddie.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. So for me, what I want to say is remember those who came before you, those who paved the way for us to be out and proud. And what I mean by that, not in a Western context, but in our history. We have had Native LGBTQ Two-Spirit people who have been documented by anthropologists that were here way before colonization. We were representative of doing our roles. We're representative. We're included in our community. We were part of our community and didn't have to deal with all the negativity that is strewn upon us nowadays. And I say learn your history. Learn your history, meaning that you can read up books on the history of our role models, like the different people from the 1800s who have been documented. And I tell people in trainings that anthropology is one-sided. It was their side. So now we're in an age where we're going to tell our side. We're going to tell the truth about who we are and where we come from, and represent that lineage of where we came from and our history and our ancestors in the correct way. So to my younger generation, continue that education and learning that history, and speak value to it, speak words to it, and be proud and honored of who you are and where you come from as a tribal member, as a Native person. So that's what I want to leave you with. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miss Panda, and we look forward to seeing you in your panda suit
tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night and on Saturday for our Pride Festival. Thank you, Maddie. Let's go ahead and head off now to our councilwoman, because she has to get back to her duties as our elected official for Navajo. Madam Councilwoman, Ms. So, Charlie.
Thank you again, brother. Yes. The first message I do just want to tell everybody is that we are all created equal. Even my title as council delegate does not make me better than anyone. We are all the same. We are all Tne. We are all related. And, I always try to use this example because I know that some veterans, they commit suicide because of that lack of acceptance. And how are they any different from the other servicemen and women who have sacrificed their lives for our freedom today? Do we not hold them all on the same pedestal? We should honor all of them. And it's because of them, all the men and women, LGBTQ or not, that we are able to enjoy the luxuries of life today. So again, I want everybody to know that. I want to thank, each and every one of you for your voice. You're very strong and courageous. Continue to speak your voice and build your legacy. And for my younger generation, as a council delegate and what I have seen, what I have witnessed, I've seen bullying at the most extreme level, and you would want to wish God not to have them experience that. But I always tell the younger generation, especially the students within my district too, that I am a safe person to come out to. I will always love and accept who you are. And, they may be throwing daggers of criticism and hatred, but I'm the type of person and leader that will stand in front of them to defend them. And that's what we all need to do within our capacities, whether we're educators, whether we are in the law enforcement, whether we are in a political field. We need to protect our people. We need to stand up for one another. And already our population has declined due to COVID-19. I don't think we want to lose any more relatives. It's too heartbreaking. We need to love and accept one another. We need to protect one another. We need to accept one another. And so to the younger generation, as my mom always said, I did hit a low point in my life in the year 2013. It was a dark time for me. And my mom always told me, like, there's a reason why you're here on earth. We all have a purpose. And I want everybody to know that you are here for a purpose. So young ones, build your legacy, accept yourself, love who you are. Don't waste any time on that negativity. Life is precious, life is beautiful. So I love each and every one of you. Again, thank you, brother.
Thank you so much for that, Councilwoman, and we really appreciate you taking time this evening during this particular historic event happening with the council session, as you guys are debating over the last couple of months now to allocating over $1 billion. Never happened before in Navajo history, and you're at the forefront there advocating for our relatives. So thank you, Councilwoman, for your leadership. So now let's go ahead to our closing part of here with the last person on our list, Mr. Runhorse, Sherrick.
Thank you, Alray. Thank you, Delegate So, for your wise words. And, I think that, Delegate So is right. We're all here. We're all here as relatives. We're all here as family. The thing that for me, I always think about our younger folks. And one thing that, I'm happy to say is that I also am a school board member. And so I always have to think about youth as well. And for this Navajo Nation Pride, for our school, Navajo Prep, we did a sponsorship for the first time. But the reason why we did that is because we have so many young people that just showing up and showing support at the Pride event, it means a lot to our younger people. It shows that, there's support from which is one school, but it just shows that we all care. We all care for our youth. We all care for one another. But if I went back to, my younger self and think that we've all had our journey, I can just say to everyone that, someone is thinking of you. And I do think that you're unique and everyone is here for a reason. As Delegate So mentioned, we're all here to contribute to the world. We're all here to help our mom and dads, our family, our grandparents, our aunts and uncles, our neighbors. We're all here for a reason. And so what are you going to do to give back to your communities? So those are some things. Also, common things. Well, I don't know if it's common to everyone, but just be respectful. And as Maddie said, learn about your history. And as Dwayne mentioned, vote and know what's happening in the world globally. Oftentimes at home, we think that, maybe sometimes we just think that's the only world, but there's so much happening around, and it's a lot of crazy stuff happening globally. But, one thing that always centers me is knowing that, I can always be with my family at home, and I always have home, and those values are what carry me on. And, it starts small. Learn your values if you can. know your clans. Maybe that's what I'll stop with. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Well, there you have it, everyone. I want to say thank you to our worldwide audience, to the students at Harvard University, Texas State University, New Mexico State University, the University of New Mexico, my alma mater, but also to Diné College, Navajo Technical University, and to ACLU, that's based out of Utah. Hello, guys. ACLU based out of Washington, D.C., and ACLU based out of Seattle, Washington. We're really happy to bring you this event tonight to learn a little bit more about who is Navajo, the largest sovereign nation in population and landmass in the United States. Again, my name is Alray Nelson. It's an honor to have served as executive director for the last 4 years. This is our last virtual event as we transition over to in-person events historically for tomorrow and this coming Saturday. Tomorrow evening, I want you all to please join us for our Sovereign Sacredness drag show. And in the evening at dusk, we're actually going to light up Window Rock in rainbow colors. The following morning, with your hostess of the mostest, Ms. Panda here, Ms. Maddie Jim, we're actually hosting the largest Indigenous Pride Parade in the country in Window Rock, Arizona, starting at 11 o'clock a.m. Then we transition to our Pride Festival at noontime there in Window Rock in front of the Navajo Nation President's Office. I'd like to shout out the 24th Navajo Nation Council, Speaker Seth Damon, for being one of our major sponsors this year. Thank you as well to you, Sheriff, for mentioning that Navajo Preparatory School is one of our major sponsors this year as well. And it's through Navajo Preparatory's sponsorship that's allowing us to push forward with our Nas'ilid Rainbow Scholarship Program. In addition to that, let's say thank you so much to President Jonathan Nez and the executive branch of Navajo Nation Police, the Office of Miss Navajo Nation, and so many others that are really behind what we're doing and are going to be there to take care of us as we have this historic celebration on behalf of you, our relatives, our Indigenous LGBTQ community, but also the Navajo people. You all have a good night now. Thank you all. We'll see you in person in Window Rock, Arizona, the next Tuesdays. Thank you all, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you, Alray. Thank you. Now, if you haven't seen Manti perform, she's phenomenal. She'll throw a fish on stage. You know, the whole donkey show is phenomenal. Thank you, Maddie.
Yay.
Thank you, everybody.
I ride a donkey. Yeah.
Good night, everybody.
Night.